Hi, I'm Tara Kelly, instructor of English with the Writing Center at the University of North Florida. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to some tips for annotating. Annotating is a fancy way of saying note-taking, usually note-taking for the purpose of getting more than the main idea. So when we are annotating our sources, we are searching for deeper meanings, for making connections, for doing things other than just understanding the main idea. When we start annotating a source, it's very important to understand the context of the source. So look at the introduction. Here I've underlined the words discourse analysis because those to me stood out as key terms. I also noticed that this is the 4th edition of this text. This text is probably pretty credible if it's in its 4th edition. Also, I looked up James Paul Gee, the author. I found out that he is at the University of Arizona. He has specialized in psycholinguistics and social linguistics, so he's into thinking about the use of language, linguistics, the use of language in context. He also is into discourse analysis and into the gamification of our classrooms. And so he seems to be pretty instrumental in this field. I also noticed that the textbook company is Routledge, and just from my own experience, I know that Routledge produces educational materials, and so I can assume that this is a pretty credible source because of who the author is, because it's in its 4th edition, and because it comes from a reputable company. I also circled that this particular edition is 2014, so it's pretty recent, and there probably isn't anything more recent than this particular edition. When you're skimming a text, it's also important to look at the table of contents. Here, I just wanted to illustrate that this book is definitely about discourse analysis, about what it is and how it's done. And then I'm going to go right into just one chapter of this textbook, and this is chapter 2, What is Discourse Analysis? I noticed that this looks very much like a textbook. It has an outline of what I can find in this chapter, has the page numbers for where I can quickly go to those sections. And then if I look, I can see that there are section headers and some bullet pointed information. And then at the end of the chapter, there is readings, a section on readings. This means that these are additional sources that I could look into if I wanted some additional information. If I go back to the first page of this chapter, I want to point out that on the left hand of this page, I've shown you the kinds of notations that I might make when annotating a source. I will circle key terms. I will put a square around new terms, terms that I might need to define. I underline the main ideas, and then I also might star things that I think are very important, put a smiley face next to things that I agree with. I put a check mark against things that I might want to look up, and I put a question mark against things that I don't really understand and that I might want to ask about, for instance, in a class discussion. So you want to develop your own set of annotations, your own way to annotate your sources. You can borrow the ones that I have here, and then as time goes on, you will develop the ones that make sense for you. What you do not want to do is just underline absolutely every single thing you think is important. You really want to keep your notations for a purpose. What is it that you're trying to understand from the source that you're reading? So if we look into this chapter, I have just glanced at the introduction and I have underlined this chapter as an overview of what the word discourse means. Okay, that's what this chapter is about. I would finish reading the introduction and then I go into the first paragraph of the first section where it says the word discourse is used in different ways in different academic areas, and different types of discourse analysis are used in a variety of different disciplines. This word different is coming up over and over and over again. What I understand here is that there may not be a single use of discourse or a single context for discourse, that it happens in many different places, this word different coming up again. I also know that discourse is communication or dialogue. That's really important. So if I think about it, Discourse happens in all over the place, in all these different places. And then it's a dialogue, it's a two-way street. So discourse is something is communicating with something else. And as I continue to read, we humans can analyze nearly anything in terms of meaning. We can treat anything as a sign or symbol and give it some meaning. So here the words analyze and meaning come up. I do know that this chapter is about analysis, so it doesn't surprise me that analyze is an important word. And then we have this idea that we are making meaning, that what we are doing in the communication is to make meaning. And then there's an example. For example, babies, mountains, and stars can be, for us humans, not just things in the world, but symbolic of meaning like innocence, majesty, and infinity. However, to linguists, discourse names a part of language that has an intimate relationship to syntax. Syntax means the structure of language, the way words and phrases combine together into sentences. And then the next paragraph goes into defining syntax. What I can think about this initial paragraph here is that the entire thing about discourse analysis is going to be analyzing communication and dialogue that happens in a variety of locations and a variety of spaces. And that analysis is to think about how people make meaning. So from that paragraph, that's what I understand. And then I could think about, well, the rest of this chapter is going to tell me more about how to do that analysis or what that analysis might look like. Your purpose of reading here is to really understand what the key terms are in the academic field of what you're reading, to really get to understand and make understanding in a deeper academic sense so that you can enter into this conversation being more well-versed in the subject matter. I hope that this short video has helped you think about how to analyze or how to annotate, and good luck in all of your readings this term.